Welcome back, year 5. How are you guys? I hope you're all doing great. So today's lesson is going to be the continuation of plants reproduction. The past two lessons were really easy. I think you all did great in the assignments. You all found out the answers and it was great. I'm so proud of you guys. So today we're going to start to upgrade things a little bit, and I have a little surprise for you at the end of this lesson. So let's start. So which structure grows on an adult plant? What does that mean? It means that, as we said, the beginning of any plant is of course the roots, because the plant has to anchor itself to the soil, and then after that it starts to develop the stem to hold the plant and to deliver all the nutrients and the water from the roots. Of course, after that it should have some of the leaves so that it can make food until it reaches the final part, which is the flower, of course. So the flower is an indication that this plant is an adult plant, which means it's a big plant, or it reached adulthood by blooming its flowers. So the flower is the structure that grows in an adult plant. In which plant structure do plants reproduce? Again, so we knew that the place where seeds are formed is the flower. So the place where the flower has its male or female organs, or both of them, are found also in the plant. So biologic reproduction will occur in the flower, of course. So the flower is an indication of the adulthood of the plant, and it's the place where the reproduction occurs. So we're going to just remember the main parts of the flower. Of course, we said that the male organ of the flower is called the stamen, and the stamen it consists of two parts. The anther is the upper part, and the filament is the thread holding the anther, and the two of them combined forms the stamen, which is the male reproductive organ in the plant. The second part is the carpel, or sometimes they call it the pistil, and the carpel or the pistil is the female organ in the plant or in the flower. And we agreed that the carpel consists of several parts. The upper part is called the stigma. This long part is called the style. The swollen part at the end is called the ovary, and inside the ovary there are the small eggs, which is called the ovules or the ovum. Now let's talk a little bit about the male reproductive organ in the flower. The male reproductive organ is of course the stamen, and as we said, it consists of the anther, which is the upper part, and the filament, which is the thread holding the anther. Those little powder or small particles looks like powder is actually the pollen grains, and the pollen grains are the cells which is responsible for the reproduction in the male organ. So as you can see in this GIF that I found, at the beginning the anther is actually made of chambers or small rooms, and starts to open up at the time of spring, or at the time of when the plant is ready for reproduction. It starts to open up, as you can see, and it starts to spread the pollens with different ways that we're going to learn about them later in those lessons. So it's at the beginning the anther is actually closed, and then when the flower is ready, it starts to open up to to expose the pollens out, so it would be easier for it to fly or to be transferred into the female organ. So on the male, there is a powder called the pollen. When a pollen and an egg, which the eggs are the ovules or the ovums found inside the ovary in the carpel, which is the female reproductive organ, when the pollen and the egg combine together, they make a seed that we find in the fruits. So what do plants reproduce? The baby in the plant virgin. So the plant virgin baby is actually the seed. So let's look at this picture and answer this question. Which part is the male and female? So I think after talking several times about the two organs, we can easily differentiate, or we can easily find out which is the male and which is the female organ. So the male organ is this one, because it's very obvious that it contains pollens and it has a filament and an anther. So this is going to be the male organ, while those, and this is a very good chance to tell you that sometimes in a flower you might find more than one carpel. It's not really necessary for the flower to have only one carpel. It could have several number of carpels. This is something. The other thing is that some flowers may contain only anther, and in this case this flower will be a male flower, and some other times the flower will contain only the female organ, which in this case it will be a female flower. So this flower has both the male and female flowers, and both of the flowers that we find in our gardens or in places that we go to, it's simply just there are too many of them, of the flowers, too many kinds of the flowers have both of the organs. So again, coming to this question, which part is the male and female? So this is going to be the male part, while this, it's very obvious that it is a carpel and it has this white sticky surface, which is called the stigma, the style, and at the end of each one of them there is a swollen place, which is the ovary. How does pollen get to an egg? So this is a very good question. If the egg is found here and the pollens are in the anther, it should just find a way, the pollens should find a way, a specific mechanism that it can reach the stigma with. And to as a matter of fact, there are 4 ways that the pollen could get into the stigma or stick to the stigma with. We already said one of them, and we learned about one of them when we talked about the reason why the petals of the flower is scented and colorful. And we said because it really needs to attract insects to the flower, and this is a way that the pollen could get into an egg. So the first thing, before talking about insects, we're going to talk about the wind. Sometimes wind is so strong that it starts to shake the pollens out of the anthers of a plant, and this will make it fly over to reach a flower with a stigma, with an open stigma, that the pollen could get stuck into it. So the wind is one of the reasons, or one of the ways, that the pollen could get into an egg. The other type, which is the famous type that we talked about before, is by sticking to animals such as um, the bees, of course. And this is a picture, actually a very funny picture that I found, that pretty much wraps up what happens if they really gets the pollen starts to get stuck to to the body of the bees, and that after that the bee starts to move around to another flower where the pollen that got stuck into their body start to fall on the stigma of another flower. So why does a bee goes to a flower? What will make the bee go to the flower? Actually, the flower has bright colors and smells sweet, and this attracts the bees towards it. They just get attracted to bright colors and the sweet smell, and because of their sweet smell, they are really smart creatures. They understand that this sweet smell means that they can get the sweet nectar, which they can afterwards transform it into honey. So the flower has bright colors and smells sweet, so they go and drink the sweet nectar from flower, which they use it to make honey. See, look at those beautiful, beautiful flowers. They are really beautiful. So another types of animals that could be responsible of transferring pollens is bats and hummingbirds. Another way that the pollens could get transferred from the anther into the stigma is by human themselves. Sometimes human uh, uh, start to artificially move the pollens from the anthers to the stigma in order to initiate reproduction. So sometimes they use the human themselves. They start to extract pollens and they transfer it themselves to the stigma in order to start the reproduction. So this is the third way that the pollen could get into an egg. The fourth and the last way is, of course, by water. Sometimes water start to wash out the pollens and they will transfer them into another water plants that have an open stigma to take in the pollen. So now let's talk about pollination. After talking about pollens and the reproduction of the production of pollens and how do they transfer to the egg, let's talk about the definition of pollination. So the pollination is actually the transfer of pollens from the anther into or from the stamen to the carpel. This is the meaning of pollination. Sometimes pollination could be self-pollination. Like what? Like when a flower has both the anther and the stigma, it's really easy for the anther to open up and start to, by a little wind, spread the pollens to the stigma of the same flower. So that's why it's called self-pollination, because the pollen of the flower will be transferred to the stigma of or the carpel of the same flower. So self-pollination is actually, it means the same flower has both got both the pollen and the egg out of the same flower. So the male and female parts of the same flower, they pollinate themselves. While in case of cross-pollination, I think it's very obvious. When the pollens of one flower starts to travel and stick to the stigma of another flower. So cross pollination, that's why it's called cross pollination, because it goes through different flowers. So sometimes this the pollens of this flower will get to the stigma of this flower, and the pollens of this flower will get the stigma of the other flower. So different flowers will start to reproduce. So pollen from one plant pollinates another plant. Cross-pollination, as you can see, here you go. So this anther starts to produce pollen which traveled into the stigma of this flower, the other flower, and this one start to produce pollens that transferred into this pistil or this carpel. So this is a sequence of cross-pollination. Pollen from stamens stick to a bee as it visits a flower to collect food. So it sticks to the bee while it's collecting the nectar from this flower. The bee travels to another plant of the same type, and the pollen sticking to its leg. So it will stand on this other flower. Pollen on the bee sticks to a pistil of a flower on the other plant. So this is what cross-pollination means. This is a little classwork we're going to do together, guys, that wraps up what we took in the last session and today's session. It's going to add small information to what we've learned so far. So the question says, fill in the boxes with the name of the flower part from the words in the box below. This is the box below. Color the petals red, the sepals green, and the pollen yellow. So let's start first doing the labels. We're going to answer the first label, the sticky part at the top of the carpel, the sticky part. So it is, yes, it is the stigma, right? You were right, guys. The long tube of the carpel. Give you a second. Yes, it's called the style, and the swollen part at the end of the carpel is the ovary. Now this is the colorful part, the colorful and scented part of the flower. It is the petal, you were right, guys, and the upper part of the stamen, which has the pollens inside it, is called anther, and the thread that holds the anther is called the filament. And this is the small leaves that protects the flower before it blooms. The flower parts, it protects the flower parts, and it's usually green, so it is the sepal. Very good, guys. Now let's move on to the next question. How pollination works? Fill in the blanks. For plants to make seeds, the pollens from the, where do we find the pollens? This is a very easy question. So the pollen from the anther of course, of one flower needs to fertilize the ovule of another flower. Number 2 says the seeds are produced in the flowers. The seeds are produced in the flowers dash at the base of the pistil. So where do we find the seeds of the flower? And the base of the pistil is the carpel, another name for the carpel. So the base of it will make it really easy. So yes, you were right, it's the ovary. Number 3, a variety of critters, and critters means creatures. Critters means creatures. A variety of critters collect pollen and nectar to feed themselves and their young. These critters also carry pollen from one flower to another and are called, and this, guys, is the piece of information that we're going to add to what we learned today. So the cell that the male reproductive organ in the flower produce is called the pollen, and the process of transferring the pollen from the anther to the stigma or from the stamen to the carpel is called pollination. So this will make the creature that will take the pollen, or that will transfer the pollen from the anther to the or from the stamen to the carpel. It is derived from the same name, so it is called the pollinator. So the pollinator is the creature that transfer the pollens from the stamen to the carpel. Now the fourth question is very easy. Name at least 4 critters that might be pollinators. So this is really easy, guys. I'm going to go with the 3 that we learned today, and I will add one more from me. First, of course, are the bees. Second are the bats. Third are the hummingbirds. And last are any type of insects like the mosquitoes. Okay, guys, I forgot to color the flower up there, so they asked us to color. I'm just going to grab my pen. So they want me to color the petals red. Now let's color the petals red. So here we go. I'm just great at coloring, as you can see. Okay, and here's another petal. Wow, I'm having really fun. Okay, so here you go. Beautiful. And they want me to color the sepals green. So now let's find the green color. Okay, so those are the sepals. They're smaller, so it's much easier to color them. Okay, here we go. And then they want me to color the pollen yellow. So where are the pollens, guys? So the pollens are right here. So I'm going, whoa, sorry, I got to the filament a little bit. So this is supposed to be where the pollens are. So here you go. Beautiful, beautiful. Now this is the surprise I was keeping for you guys. We're not going to have a homework today. We're going to have a science activity, and some of them are science activity and some of them are preparation for the science activity, for the next science activity. So the first thing I want you guys to do is to start grow a plant. I want you to bring any of the seeds that you have at your homes, whether they are chickpeas or fava beans, black lentils, maybe black-eyed peas, whatever you will find at your house. And I need you to bring a cup and put cotton at the base of the cup and soak it with water, and then add the seed to the soaked cotton. And I want you guys, I'm going to upload an assignment. It's ungraded, not graded, and I'm just going to upload the link so that you can upload all the pictures that you're going to take during this week till the end of the week. And maybe the next week too, we're going to upload the progress of your plant. It's going to be really fun. I want you guys all to join, please. And I'm going to put the link today so that you can upload the pictures on it during this week. And don't forget to write your name on the picture. The second thing that I want you guys to do as a preparation for the second science activity this week is to, not of course this is too much, I want you to just bring a jar or a small cup and put inside it, fill it with water first, and put inside it like 3 or maybe 4 of the seeds that you have. I just want you guys to soak it in water so that it's soft enough for you to be able to open it. because we will learn about what is inside the seed, and I want you guys to watch it in real life. So this is as a preparation for the next science activity, and I will be posting a link for this too, but later on when we start the science activity of this part. Now the third thing that I'm going to put another link as an assignment but ungraded is I want you guys, if you can do it, this is optional guys, if you cannot do it, it's okay, it's totally okay. I'm going to upload some of the pictures that I found and maybe a little video too to show you. I want to, if you have a garden at your house, or maybe you're planting some flowers in your balcony, I want you guys to take a picture of this flower, whether and I want you guys to upload this pictures in the link that I'm going to post, and I want you to specify whether this this flower has both the male and female organs, or only the female organs, or only the male organs. And I want to like circle those parts and to just justify your answer. Okay, so this is for today guys. I hope you had fun with me today learning about pollination. We're going to have so much fun doing the science activity. I'm going to upload a video for you, and I'm going to join you in the science activity. I already started to plant seeds, and I found out some of the flowers in my garden, and we're going to have fun doing those science activities together until guys, and don't get used to it, you're going to have homeworks tomorrow. So until tomorrow guys, I wish all of you are okay and fine and safe at your house. Stay safe, I love you, see you tomorrow, bye bye.